I should be talking about gold and silver because that's what we do. But, the fact of the matter is that you need to be a little more well rounded. I'm always saying this. We need to be more of our own financial advisor. We need to be more savvy with those things and with numbers and different things like that. That's why I do these talks about different things. And people in Canada are just insane about houses. Like I jokingly call Canada like a housing cult because we're just obsessed with housing. Now, I get it. There's clearly some good reasons for that, but it's gotten out of control. And housing's a crisis now. I mean, I said it sort of not tongue in cheek. I meant it for real back a while when Virginia and I were doing a video together. And I said, I'm just going to call it. We have a housing crisis in Canada. And I wasn't even looking as deeply as I've been looking since then, because now it's on everybody's conscience and it's a big deal. So, one of the things I hear out there, and a lot of times when I hear guys talking about the monetary system and how that relates to loans and banking and all this different stuff, and you hear some like half truths and myths, bantered back and forth. And I want to address one of them today. And this big myth that's been going along, just so I understand, I come from a kind of a monetary reform background. Hung around with guys, as boring as that sounds, that talked about, how a monetary system should be run in order to correct some of the faults that we often bring up when we're talking about it in the gold community and other, macroeconomic communities and different things like that. We talk about how to straighten out this mess we're in, right? Everybody has different ideas. And you get some myths that come up, and I'm going to address one of them today. And the myth that comes up is the problem with the quote unquote, and of course it depends on who you listen to, whether there's a shortage of money or there's too much currency in circulation, or what the real truth is. But suffice it to say, people will come up with this meme that, well, dollars come. Here's some facts: dollars come into existence by being borrowed into existence, and they go out of existence by being they get destroyed. Dollars literally get destroyed when we pay off debts, because they're simply, as I've said before, banking is an accounting system. Now, money is commoditized and kind of sold to the public as a commodity, but the actual tracking of the dollars and the various debts is an accounting scheme. That's all it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what banking is. It's an accounting system. I've even talked to bankers about it, senior bankers, 37 years. It's an accounting system, right? Yeah, of course, that's what it is. They know. I mean, it's not like it's some secret. It's an accounting system. So, what is my point with that? Well, if it's an accounting system, how come it can't count right? Remember, I believe the origins of accounting are accounting. I mean, when we used to work with precious metals or various different coins and bills and different things like that, accounting was a counting. We sat down and we counted all the notes or coins or whatever we had, and did a tally, accounting, and that's kind of merged into accounting. The origins of words, right? So if it's just accounting, then how come we have this problem with a shortage of money? Why is money a accounting system and a commodity at the same time? I think eventually we're going to find that that's part of where the problem is. The two just don't gel properly. But here's, like I said, a myth that I hear a lot of times. And to be fair, these people are trying to solve problems. They're trying to point out defects in the system. They're being true to themselves. I just think they're wrong. And here's why. Here's the myth. Okay. So when we create money, and I had to go through that explanation of creating money and all that, so you maybe understand this a little bit better. So when we create money through a loan, for example, a home, let's say a nice round number like $1 million, seeing that's what it takes to get any kind of a normal house nowadays. This little tongue-in-cheek dig there. Got to keep digging on that house price, because it needs to go down badly for anybody to be able to afford them. So when we create the $1 million into existence, what they'll say is, well, they create the $1 million for the transactions for the loan, but they don't create the interest. And this is why there's always a shortage of currency, and why we run into these deficits and these problems, and why you don't have money in your hand, and you don't have money in your hand, and you over there don't have money in your hand. And I'm here to tell you that that's nonsense. It's not true. They do create the interest. They do. They absolutely do create the interest. You ready? I'm going to show you It's so simple when you see it, you're going to go, how come I didn't check this before? This is crazy. Ready? Here's an amortization chart. See, the yellow is the interest portion. The green is the loan principal portion, and red is the loan principal balance. So as you can see, the more naturally when you pay your first mortgage payment, it's going to be mostly interest and a little bit of principal. And then towards the end, you can see the yellow line getting decreasing and the green line increasing. The green will be more principal being paid each payment. And then once the debt is completely reduced, then it's down to zero. Now, each of the green loan principal portion, when it's paid back, gets crossed off the ledger, because that's all it is. It's a debt and credit ledger, and the yellow portion, it goes on the bank's balance sheet as their profit. That's how the bank is paid. So the money does exist. It exists on the bank's balance sheet, and they don't erase that. That's the bank's money to currency to pay. Here, I keep correcting myself on money. I'm trying to do that now. The currency to pay, all the costs of running a bank. It's not cheap to run these tall buildings with all these locations all over the place, and all the staff and all the upkeep and they got to sometimes pay mortgages too. Some of these are borrowed money, right? So they have things that they do. And so that money trickles out into the economy. So there isn't a shortage of dollars due to money creation. That is an absolute total myth. This chart shows you the yellow part, the green part, it's all there. That whole graph is the entire amount. So let's go to a mortgage calculator and show what this looks like. If I have a mortgage of $1 million and the interest rate is 6.6%, the historical average for the last 70 years, and 25-year amortization, look down here. Look down here at this number. That's the actual amount of money that was created. And if you add up all of the payments, right, if we take 300 payments let's see if that's right. Let's see if we get the exact number here. I'm sure it is, but just for fun, you won't be able to see this, but I'll do this on my phone over here. So we have $6,758.97 times 300 payments equals $2,027,691. Exactly what they've got there. So all of the money was created. And by the way, you don't pay $1 million for your house. You're never allowed to say that in my presence. I will correct you. Now, you didn't pay $1 million for your house. Well, that's what no, sorry, I don't care what the sign said or what the paper document said. This is what you paid for your house. That's what you'll end up paying if you stay there for 25 years and make all those $6,758.97 payments. You will pay $2,027,691.22. The money, the currency correction is created at source. So if you're looking for a reason why there's issues with the accounting of our GDP, and this brings up another subject. How can we actually trust any numbers we're told in finance? I'm going to say it right here. You've heard the expression numbers don't lie. Yeah, they do. Financial numbers do lie. There's all kinds of examples of this. If you the average person thinks if you lose 50% on your investment, all you have to do is gain 50% back. No, you have to gain 100% back. And people say, what? I lose 50, then I have to gain 100? That's right. If you buy a stock and it goes down 50%, it has to go up from that point 100% in order to get back. Because what's happened is it's based on the base. Once you've reduced the base from 100 down to 50, then the base is half the size. So now to get to 100, it has to double. It has to go up by 100%. Right? So numbers lie. They do actually lie. Financial numbers do lie. And they don't really lie. We just don't understand them. So if an average person looks at that and doesn't think, right? I've often asked the people this question when I'm talking to crowds. I'll say, if a bank loans, X amount of person money at 4%, and the money that they were loaning out, they're paying 2% for it, what's their rate of return? And people will just knee jerk say 2%. I go, you sure? You sure it isn't like 100%? Because if it costs $2,000 to borrow $100,000, to use someone's $100,000, even though that's not how banking works anymore, but it did used to on fractional reserve banking. So if we were loaning out depositors money way back when, and we had to pay them for that, we had to pay them $2,000 for the loan of their money and pay them 2% bond on that, but we were loaning it out at 4%, we'd be getting $4,000 back. from the 100. See? So it's actually a 100% increase. It's not a 2% increase. So financial numbers do lie. Just remember that. It's another axiom I'd like you to remember. Financial numbers lie. Numbers don't lie, but financial numbers do lie. And that's an important distinction to make. So, with all the nonsense that's going on in the housing market right now and the uproar that's happening, and this is going to be a national conversation. If it isn't already, it will be soon. Like, this will be a household conversation that'll be happening at regular intervals around the dinner table, I'm sure, because it's such a shit show. And, I'm going to start swearing on here too, because honestly, I'm not trying to monetize our YouTube channel. It's strictly for information and for promotion of our company at some point. And I just want to get it out there. And I just get so frustrated. I think I'm going to have to add some sentence enhancers, as I call them. I don't call them swear words. That's wrong. They're just sentence enhancers, some strong language once in a while. It's good for emphasis. So I'm going to call it a shit show. The real estate in Canada is a shit show. I might even put it in the title this time. But anyway, little humor there. It's kind of a not very funny subject, but what everybody's going through with the housing issue in Canada right now. And if you haven't looked into it, really start digging around, start listening to some people talk about housing rants. If you want a really great source of information, I've been listening to like affordability rants on TikTok that people upload to YouTube. If you've got a TikTok account, go in and look at some of the conversations going on about housing affordability and mortgages and different things. Like, put them in as a subject matter and really listen to the news on the street out there. It's getting quite nasty and quite ugly for people. It's very sad to see. We used to be a really prosperous country, and it's just terrible to watch what's happening. People are getting destroyed out there. So hopefully, that can turn around at some point. But I think it's going to be a trench warfare for the next pretty good long time. You look at Japan's economy and the mistakes they made. They just finally, after 35 years, poked their stock market poked its head above its previous all-time high. And that's not including inflation. So this is the disaster that we're, going to create for ourselves if we follow their rule and their mistakes. And so far, so good. This has been the way things have been handled. The people are complaining about the interest rate being high. I just showed you the 6.6 interest rate I used there. And the reason I always use that rate is because that's a normal rate, folks. We're not seeing high interest rates right now in borrowing. That's a normal rate. Like, if you actually go and you take the rates from every year for the last 70 years and divide them by 70, that's the number you get. So that is the average rate. And a third of that, like I would say the last 25 years, a third of that have been what I call the mortgage rate twilight zone. Very, very, very low rates. And this always ends in disaster. Cheap money creates a lot of problems eventually. So, we're paying for it now. And really the only correction for this, and it's not very popular to say this in the Canada housing cult, the prices of houses have to go way down. And I'm here to say that in order to get them back to fair value, which is where just about every market eventually goes. Well, so far, not just about every market since record keeping has gone back to fair value. What does fair value look like? Well, you don't even want to know. Personally, I think houses have to go down by 75% to hit fair value across the board, and some even farther than that. The bubble that has been blown up in Canada, particularly in the big cities, the bubble cities like Toronto, Durham Region, Vancouver, Surrey, that whole area is insane. And it's got to get fixed, or we're going to have some even more serious problems on our hands. We're just beginning, folks. Protect yourself at all costs. Do whatever you can to use this information to make good choices, and looking forward to hearing some good news from some people that have taken those steps eventually. All right. I think that's enough for today. Thanks for listening, folks. Have a great day.